Hi, everybody, and welcome again to Thursdays with Troy. As usual, I'm Troy Lambert, super plotterer, mystery author, and editor, and your host. And today I'm really proud to present Leslie Langtry. Is that correct? Langtry?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
She is the USA Today bestselling author of 3 cozy comedy series. I love that term, cozy comedy, including the Mary Rath Mysteries, the Greatest Hits series, which has some of the greatest titles of books on the planet, the Aloha Lagoon Ukulele Mysteries, and Sex, Lies, and Family Vacations, which I also particularly enjoy just the title of that series. She is not, she assures me, nor has she ever been a CIA agent or an assassin. It's a question that comes up fairly often for mystery writers. She was a Girl Scout volunteer for 15 years, which has given her a lot of ideas for mysteries and murders and a bunch of material she uses in her books. She lives in the Midwest with her family and assorted animals and has an unnatural obsession with cake, but I'm not sure that's unnatural. I don't know. Maybe we'll explore that later. And you can find out more about her at our website, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Welcome, Leslie.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Troy.
Well, so of course, mystery is one of the hottest genres out there, but there's some really cool subgenres of mysteries, which we're going to talk about. Cozy and dark humor are both a big part of that. But as we've talked about before, it's really important to get mystery elements right to meet reader expectations. And so we're going to talk a little bit about how you do that and how Plottr plays a role in your process. So tell us how you got started with Plottr. What did you do before, and how did you get started with Plottr?
Before, I just wrote notes in a notebook or had Post-its everywhere. And my 20th book in the Mary Rath Mysteries just came out. And as I got further along, I realized I was forgetting a lot of things as I go. Just too many books, too many things. And in mystery, you have several plot lines. You have the plot line, but you might have subplot lines. You have characters, you have suspects, all these things that you need to keep straight. And I think it was maybe the beginning of this year, I stumbled across Plottr. And I downloaded the free option and set up my own template and loved it right away. So I'm a very visual person. I have paper calendars. I still write paper notes. But this was a way for me to see everything on my desktop on one screen. So I could have each chapter laid out, a little bit about each chapter, and then the elements of each chapter underneath. And that way, it was real easy for me near the end to go back and look, oh, do I have any clues I have to tie up, any loose ends, any suspects I didn't deal with? And Plottr really helps me do that.
Yeah, spotting plot holes and keeping track of things is a big deal. So how long have you been writing in this genre, and what drew you to kind of this mixture of mystery and humor and all that kind of, and obviously throwing a bunch of those assorted animals in there? What kind of drew you to that?
Well, I've always been a reader of mysteries. I mean, started with Nancy Drew and Encyclopedia Brown when I was a kid and graduated to Agatha Christie. There used to be mystery bookstores all over the country where you could go in and they'd know you and they'd pull, you love these, we'll give you these. Now Amazon kind of does that. But I like to write what I want to read. So that's how I got involved with that. And I've always loved using comedy in my books. I think it just adds an extra element of fun to the whole thing. Mysteries can be kind of dark anyway, there's a body, there's weapons, there's poison, there's axes, there's all kinds of things. So comedy kind of adds levity to it, but I just love doing it. I absolutely love writing it. I love my characters. I love my fans. I love everything about the genre.
That is absolutely fantastic. Now we're going to share your Plottr file because we're going to talk a little bit about basically your methods and your template type thing. So we're looking at, tell us about this book that we're looking at right now.
So I believe this is the book that just came out, my 20th book, Manga and Murder. And so what you can see across the top are the chapters laid out very nicely. The way Plottr has it, it's so easy to go in and just click on an empty box. And I write in what day it is and what basically is happening in that chapter. And then below I have the victim line, which is great because then sometimes I have multiple victims, but it tells me what chapter that victim was discovered in. And below that are the suspects, because in mystery, you have to have multiple suspects. You have to make it really hard for the reader to decide who, the bad guy is. And if you scroll down a little bit, you can see, clues play a huge role in that too, because I need to know what clues. Some are red herrings, some are real, but it really helps to keep track of where the clues are, where they fall in the book. And then animals, if you scroll down a little more, so I have a lot of animals in my book, from a king vulture to a cat that looks like Hitler. And my fans really love it when the animals are in there, and I don't ever want to, not have them in there. So I mark where, I've got this, I've added these animals in there. And ensemble are my regular recurring characters, to keep track of that, because I have a lot of characters in this small Iowa town of who's there, Iowa. And it really helps me keep track of who I've introduced and who I haven't. And then below that, I think even further down, is new characters. So anytime I introduce a new character, I can put it in there and a little bit about them, which also helps because I tend to add a lot of characters in my books. And so these are all ways that I can keep track. Sometimes below new characters, I'll often have another line that's like subplots. So there's something that isn't directly tied into the mystery, but is also going on. It helps me to keep track of those two, so that at the end of the book, I can go back and go, did I tie up all of my plot holes? And it really helps me keep track of everything. And it's all on one screen, which makes it really, really easy.
Right. That makes it really, really useful. Now, for your main plot line, do you use a specific kind of mystery formula, or do you kind of have your own?
And if you go into, the plot, the boxes, there's a lot more you can enter. I do not do that. I just put everything in the title of the, box itself, because I just want to look at it at a glance and see what I'm doing. I don't use any formula. I'm afraid if I started learning more about writing mysteries that it would break my system. So what I use works for me. I'm a pantser. I make it up as I go along. And I know a lot of plotters like Plottr, but this works especially for me because after I write a chapter, I go and I fill all this in so that I know what I did. It's kind of weird being a pantser, but that's just how I've always written. And I find Plottr extremely useful for that.
Well, yes, I was going to ask you about that because as a pantser, I like the fact that you go back in and write things in afterwards. So when you're in the revision process, do you go back in and revise things in Plottr, or do you just do it in your writing file?
No, I'll do it in the Plottr file too if I haven't finished the book. Once I finish the book, I don't really do heavy revisions. My publisher, it goes through about 2 or 3 editing processes, so that if they do have me change something, I will go back and change it in Plottr. But Plottr helps me mostly through the process. And I've heard pantsers say, I couldn't use Plottr, but I think it's exactly what it's good for, because we make it up as we go along. I mean, I'll be in the middle of a scene going, oh my God, you did it? I didn't know you did it. So it just helps me to go back and look at all the victim suspects clues and arrange that all around what I end up doing.
Right, exactly. And that is fantastic that you track things as you go, because I think this is a unique way to use Plottr as well. So you put everything basically in the title, so everything's at a glance. Do you use anything that tracks an overall arc for your series, or do you keep track of that elsewhere as well?
I do not. I have a series Bible. I have somebody reads all my books and creates this very intense series Bible that helps me keep track of the overall series. But I really don't follow any formula or plan. It's worked for me so far, and I'm afraid if I tried to do anything different, it would mess up my system. So the Plottr really helps me as I'm working on the book, as opposed to after.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, and so what system do you use to write in? Do you write in Scrivener? Do you write in Word? How do you transition from Plottr to your, or actually in your case, vice versa, from your writing system to Plottr? What do you use?
Well, I tried Scrivener and it just had too many moving parts. It was a little difficult for me. I just write in Word. It's what I'm used to, and I just switch back and forth. So I have both things up on my screen and just switch back and forth between the two documents as I go. It's very prehistoric, I know, but it's what works for me.
No, not at all. I like that it's a very simple process. Is there anything else you'd like to show us, like about this particular file, that people might get a takeaway from?
Well, I think what's good, and I don't know if you can click on the chapter 1 box, the main plot. I am very excited about some of the new elements. I was at the Novelist Inc. conference and I was at the Plottr workshop, and I was very excited about some of the things you have coming down the line too. So I think I will just keep working in Plottr till I stop writing.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, we've tested some new features that are actually really cool. They're coming. I can't tell you about
Right.
all about them. But if you go to some cool conferences, you'll get to see them. You might get to see them live, and they're coming soon. We're not all that far off from those type of things. So actually, I really like this because one of the things I like about it is your simplicity of process. You don't have to use all the bells and whistles in Plottr, as I often say, actually, on this broadcast with people. You don't have to use everything. You just have to use the things that work for you. And I like that you found a way to do that, and that it works really well for you. So what are some other ways that you track your story besides Word, besides your series Bible? Do you still have other things that you use along with that as well? Or is it just Plottr and Word kind of thing?
It's just Plottr and Word. I mean, like I said, I make it up as I go. So I may have some notes about, for example, a book I'm writing now takes place in Louisiana. So little things about Cajun culture, things like that. I may have notes about that, but really it's Plottr and Word. And I have friends who are trying Plottr now, and they are far more detailed. They are going to use probably every single element of Plottr. And I explain to them, what works for me isn't going to work for you. You're going to want to use the whole thing. But with me, what I use works perfectly. It's a little weird to explain that, but yeah. So I think the cool thing about Plottr is that a wide variety of writers can get something completely different out of it. We're not all having the same experience.
Exactly. Not everybody. In fact, almost nobody works exactly the same way using Plottr. So where can people find you and learn more about you online and your books online? We know your website. I think you have a couple, right?
Well, yeah, but my main website where you can start and find out the most about me would be leslielangtry.com. Pretty simple. My handle on Facebook and Twitter, Leslie Langtry, and Instagram, it's all Leslie Langtry. So if you put in Leslie Langtry, you're going to find me. So that's probably the best way, is to check out my website, because you can go to all these other places through that.
Yeah, you're not hiding from anybody, and that type of thing. Now, also along that same vein, tell us about kind of your darkly funny, how you're weaving animals into all of your different books, because I obviously I love that aspect of it as well. All my books have dogs. I get all kinds of accusations about that. So tell me about that, and tell me how that's going for you and how those are working for you.
Well, and I'm a huge animal lover. I've always had 6 different animals in the house. But yeah, I've always included animals, not because I know it's a cozy trope right now, but it just has always been a thing with me to add animals, because they add so much to your regular lives. Why not put them in a book? So I think in Excuse Me While I Kill This Guy, there's a pug puppy named Poppy. But now in my Mary Wrath mysteries, there's everything from a king vulture named Mr. Fancy Pants, who's at the zoo, to Dickie, the scarlet macaw in the zoo, who repeats all the kind of unsavory things his teenage handler grumbles about at night when he works. I think I have a poison dart frog too right now in the series. So I just really love animals, and I think animals are hilarious. They're little furry clowns. And so if I can add them into my books and it means something, it's not just for show or anything, then it just seems, I mean, my readers really seem to like it, and I enjoy doing it.
Well, absolutely. That sounds fantastic. So tell people, let's go with one final takeaway for people that are writing, dark humor or mystery or a combination of the two. If you could give them one piece of advice, what would it be?
That's a good question. I think you cannot limit yourself. I think you should go weird. Honestly, I was in an improv troupe in college. So for me, comedy comes, I can kind of think of things off the top of my head. So I did speak to a group of authors a couple months ago about writing comedy. And I just said, just think of something outrageous that could possibly happen. And then you may need to tone it down, but just pick something that's just so out of the blue strange, and then fit it into your story. You may have to shave off several layers of it. You may have to go weirder, but for me, the unexpected seems to work. I think it makes an impact. Going for stale jokes and gags doesn't always work. But I think readers just like to be surprised.
Yeah, I think it adds another layer to your fiction. I think that's a fabulous takeaway for people, because you do have a unique line of books. I think they're really great. I think people should check them out. I certainly plan to. And with that, hey, thanks everyone for joining us on this episode of Thursdays with Troy. I hope you've learned something and kind of had some fun along the way. Maybe discovered some new books, but maybe discovered some new ways to fit humor and mystery into your own stories, and ways for some of you as pantsers or discovery writers to use Plottr yourselves. So with that, thanks Leslie for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
For being here, and we will see you next time on Thursdays with Troy. Thank you.